You might start seeing labels on your menu telling you if your seafood is imported. Lawmakers in the State House unanimously passed a bill that would require restaurants to notify customers if they sell imported shrimp or crawfish. Supporters say imported seafood can pose a health risk and can also unfairly affect prices for local fishermen. The bill goes to the state Senate next. And a bill looking to legalize hemp production in Louisiana will also be heading to the state Senate for debate. Today, the State House unanimously passed House Bill 491, which is seeking to lay groundwork for industrial hemp production and the sale of CBD products in Louisiana.